Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go. I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hey everyone. My name is Sarah McCarthy and I am so excited that you are joining me as we break down the following standard. Today's standard is MA.4.GR.1.1 and this standard says to informally explore angles as an attribute of two-dimensional figures. We will identify and classify angles as acute, right, obtuse, straight, or reflex. Now right here where it says informally, at first I was like, what do you mean informally explore angles? But really it just means using square corners and benchmark angles and straight edges to explore angles as acute, right, obtuse, reflex, all of that. Formally exploring would be measuring them, which is coming up in the next standard. But right now it's informal. We're using square corners to just determine, is it acute, less than a right angle? Is it a right angle? Is it obtuse, greater than a right angle? Or does it go past a straight line, making it a reflex angle? By the way, this document that I'm marking up all over is not something that I created. This is something that the Florida Department of Education releases to the public. And in these episodes, these Breaking Down the B.E.S.T episodes, we're walking through this standard together, breaking it down so that it makes sense, so we know what the expectations are. And then we'll spend the second half of the video walking through the resources that you have access to with your Taking on the B.E.S.T membership. So let's continue breaking down this B.E.S.T standard. All right, so some benchmark clarifications that we need to know. It says that instruction includes classifying angles using benchmark angles of 90 degrees, which would be a square corner, and 180 degrees, which would be a straight edge. So just using square corners, just using straight edges to determine the type of angle that we have. Clarification number 2 says that when identifying angles, the expectation includes two-dimensional figures and real-world pictures. So we're not just looking at angles on their own, but also angles inside of other polygons, inside of other two-dimensional figures and real-world pictures. Let's talk about benchmarks that are related to this one or have that element of horizontal alignment. Well, MA.4.GR.1.2 is our angle measurement and additive angles standard. This is where we are using protractors to determine the measurements of angles. This is where we are adding the measurements of angles together to find the sum of angles. And then MA.4.GR.1.3, this is finding the measure of unknown angles. All right, some terms that you need to know. First one is an acute angle. This is an angle that is less than a right angle. An angle in general is where two lines or rays meet at a vertex. An obtuse angle informally is greater than a right angle. A reflex angle is greater than a straight angle, but not quite a circle, or 360 degrees. A right angle is a square corner at exactly 90 degrees, which we will be measuring in the next standard. And a straight angle is a straight line that's exactly 180 degrees, okay? Now, where are they coming from? In 3rd grade, we learned a lot about quadrilaterals. We talked about the types of lines that they have, parallel lines, perpendicular lines. We determined square corners and right angles using square corners of pieces of paper. So they are coming up from that, but we are just taking it up even more and identifying, okay, if it's not right, what is it? Is it acute? Is it obtuse? Is it reflex? Is it straight? And then in 5th grade, we will be classifying triangles and quadrilaterals even further. For the purpose and instructional strategies section, this says that the purpose of this benchmark is to begin the understanding of angles and how they can be identified in lines and in shapes. So beginning to understanding them. We're not breaking out the protractors yet when we have instruction based on the standard. It says during instruction, students should gain experience using benchmark angles of 90 degrees and 180 degrees. For right angles, or 90 degrees, students can use the corner of a piece of paper. And I said yes to this. That's how we teach it too. By lining up the edge of the corner of the paper and one ray of the vertex of an angle, students can determine that angles are smaller, which makes them acute, or larger, which makes them obtuse. Or they can use a side of the paper to determine if they're greater than 180 degrees. So here, very small, are just some examples of that terminology in action right there. For the common misconceptions or errors, it says students believe that a wide angle with short sides may seem smaller than a narrow angle with long sides. And I just said for this whole thing right here that this is interesting, but I haven't really experienced this quite as a misconception. More of the misconception that I think students have is just the lack of understanding or how to utilize the square corner tool. Okay, and then here we have just some examples of what this standard looks like in action. So you can see we've got the terminology: right angle, acute angle, obtuse angle, reflex angle, or which statement correctly identifies the figure there. So being able to see these two-dimensional shapes and identify what kind of angles we have. That is what we are looking for right now, okay? So I think that is it for going over what this standard says. Now let's go ahead and see some more examples of what it looks like in action in your taking on the B.E.S.T membership. So here we are at the home page, mccarthymathacademy.com. You'll click right here at members, enter here. Click taking on the B.E.S.T, and you might have to log in. Which grade? We are in 4th grade. Which strand would we like to explore? We're going to scroll down to GR. This is the geometric reasoning strand. And we're going to click right here at MA.4.GR.1.1. It says identifying angles in two-dimensional figures. And right away, we are brought to the bronze resources. These are the video lessons and the student notes that go with it. So these are for students where they can watch the video lesson and take notes on their own paper. Now, the whole point of these video lessons is to make math fun and to make it click. In order to make it stick, students have to take their notes and apply it to more practice, which you'll find in the silver plan. So here we have the video lessons. We've got geometry, vocabulary, introduction, where we are identifying the correct name for each of the angles, using square corners to help us. Here we're identifying angles in two-dimensional figures using square corners to help us too. I'll show you what that looks like actually. So with this one, wider than our right. See here how we're lining up the square corner. We're lining up the square corner with the angle, and you can see that it's wider than our right, and then we'll identify that as an obtuse angle. Same thing here with our identifying angles in two-dimensional shapes. Okay. What about this angle right here? Line up your square corner, and it is it acute, obtuse, or right? It is acute. It is less. So using that square corner right there to show that it is less than a right because it's going behind the paper. So all of that is broken down in these video lessons. All right, and then when you are ready for more practice, if you have the silver plan, you have more resources available for you. So you just click here for your printables, and the format of the silver printables is the video lessons, and then the extra practice that goes with that video lessons. The video lessons, extra practice, video lessons, extra practice, and then at the end you have two additional activities to do. So this is the video lesson where we're identifying the correct name for each of the angles and providing a brief description of each. So we'll do that in the video lesson. Students will just take down their notes, and then they'll use their notes to draw an example of each description. Because remember to draw examples of each. Practice drawing what an obtuse angle looks like. Practice drawing what a straight angle looks like. Or a quadrilateral with 4 right angles. In this video lesson, the next video lesson, we're identifying angles in two-dimensional figures as well. So like you just saw in the video, taking the square corner and identifying, do we have acute, right, or obtuse angles? And then there's extra practice with other shapes where they can identify the angles of each. After that, we have a math mission. So after you have the video lesson extra practice, then you have 2 additional activities. One of those is the math mission, which is a multi-step, multi-part activity, which kind of combines everything together that they should have learned to meet the full complexity of the standard. So here it says, draw and label a triangle that has 2 acute angles and 1 obtuse angle. Part 2, draw and label a triangle that has 2 acute angles and 1 right angle. Part 3, draw and label a triangle that has 3 acute angles. So that's your math task, and there is an answer key for this. And the final activity in the silver plan is the math misconception mystery activity. This is a video lesson, so on the silver page you'll see the video right here. You just click play, and I will walk you through as your host for the entire process. First, students will solve this problem on their own or in a small group. You can decide that. And then they will watch as 4 characters solve the same problem. These characters are just me dressed up in silly costumes, making mistakes that students commonly make. So 3 of the characters will make a mistake. 1 of them will have the correct answer, and students will have to discuss and decide and justify who's correct and why in their detective report, and then analyze and examine the work of the others, identifying what their error was, and also what did they do that was correct, because they may have been partially correct, right? So that's the math misconception mystery, and your answer keys are right there. If you have the gold plan, you have access to even more support. So here you have your mini assessment, which contains about 4 to 5 questions, just depending on the standard, a variety of question types, as you can see. And you can use this as a mini assessment or as extra practice. However you want to roll this out is up to you. It doesn't even say mini assessment, it just says show what you know at the top for the student. So you have that. You also have your answer key for that mini assessment. Your breaking down the best episode that you're watching right here is located right here with all of your resources. If you are a gold member, it's ad-free, which is awesome. It's a nice little perk of being a gold member. However, these videos are actually available on YouTube as well. They do contain ads, so you have that. But really the highlight, if you were going for the gold plan, it's because you really wanted access to even more video lessons, and that's what you'll get with McCarthy Math 155. This is a daily math intervention that's aligned to the Common Core standards you'll see right there. If you've had experience with the Common Core and now you're teaching using the B.E.S.T standards, you might have noticed that there's a lot of similarities. There's enough of a difference for that's the reason why I created a whole new program for it, but there are so many video lessons here to support you with a lot of the skills. So let's go ahead and click it. So the 155 stands for 155 video lessons. We're going to click on 4th grade here, and you can see all the different units involved. We're going to go down to right here, 2-dimensional figures. I know that we're talking about angles, which is true. This is more about measuring angles. This one right here is about the types of angles inside of figures. So, okay, so this one right here, day 130, is a geometry vocabulary video. And I have a song that we break down the lyrics to. And you can see like a right angle you see is a square corner or 90 degrees. And acute is so cute like a little baby. And acute angle is less than 90. Okay, so it's going through a lot of the vocabulary words that you'll need for this one. If we keep scrolling, let me see. Day 141 might help you too, just identifying an acute angle, a right angle, obtuse, stuff like that. And then we've got lines of symmetry. So there's a little bit of practice there for this one. Okay, but if you, day 131 would help too, because I can see that we have acute, right, obtuse with other maybe review that you would need. Okay, 130 and 131 looks like the 2 to go to for this. Okay, so just write that down. 130, 131 for more practice with this standard. It's not perfectly aligned, but there's more support for you there, okay? All right, so I think that's it for breaking down the standard. Hopefully now you know what your 4th graders are expected to do, that the standard makes sense, that you know what it looks like in action, and you also know that you have a ton of resources here for you to roll out with your students that are strategically and specifically aligned to the standard. So I hope that you found this to be useful. Before we go, I just want to remind you that what you choose to wake up and do every day with your life, it really does matter. Thank you so much for stepping into the leadership role that you do every single day, for showcasing what your best looks like so your students can be inspired to do the same. Thank you so much for inviting me into your educational space, and I know that you are busy, so go get it, and I will see you in the next video real soon, okay? Bye! Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye!